in this video we'll talk about default methods in interface. So we have seen that, right? In fact, when you talk about interface, the only difference between interface and abstract class is in abstract class we can define methods, right? So in abstract class we can define methods and we can declare methods. So we have both the things, right? But in interface we can only declare methods, right? We cannot define it. So defining is not possible in interface. But that was a thing only till 1.7. The problem is, the world is changing. I mean, there are lots of things which are changing. Example, from normal softwares, from normal database management system, we are moving towards big data, right? So we have lots of requirement where you have to process huge amount of data. And when you want to process huge amount of data, you need special functions, you need special features in your language. So example, when you talk about the concept of big data, we use Hadoop, we use Spark, which is Apache Spark. And to work with Apache Spark, people normally prefer to use Scala. And somewhere Java was feeling that, people are moving from Java to Scala. It is time for us to upgrade. So the only way to upgrade is to add new features, right? And when you want to add new features, that means we have to either create some new interfaces or new classes, or we have to modify some interfaces. The problem is we are not allowed to modify the interfaces. Again, we'll see that once we start with collection topic, we'll see why we should not modify interfaces. So due to some certain requirement, in Java 1.8, we can define method in interface. Now this is not possible before 1.8, okay? If I'm using 1.7 or below, this will not work. So it only works in Java 1.8. So you can define methods now. Now the real question is then why we have interface and then, what's the main difference between that? So we don't have much difference now due to method definition in interface. So given a choice, always go for interface now, because we can also declare and define there. So what we'll do now is, let's say we have an interface here, and I will create the interface as, so I will say interface demo interface. So we have an interface which is demo, and in this interface I want to declare a method. So the only way you can declare the method is by specifying a return type, which is void, and we can mention the method name. Let's say ABC, that's the method name we have, and that's a declared method, right? But let's say I want to define a method now. Can we define a method? Let's try. If I say public void show, and if I try to define a method by saying, I will say in show, and as soon as I try to save this, you can see there's an error here, and it says that you cannot, abstract method do not specify a body. By default, in interface we can have only abstract methods, right? So this is not possible. So now what we'll do is, so to define this, we have to use a special keyword called as default. So using default, you can define a method now. You can see there is no error. And unfortunately, again, we cannot create an object of interface. So let's create a class, and we'll name this class as demo impl, which implements your interface, which is demo. Let's create that method, which is ABC. We'll say public void ABC, and we'll say system.out.println. And it is working here because it is a public method. I guess because of the interface, it was not able to interpret this. Okay, let's print here. Let's say in ABC. Now you can see we have a demo method, the show method, and then we have ABC method, which is defined. I cannot create object of interface, but I can create the reference of interface, right? So I can say demo obj equal to new demo impl, and let's call obj.abc, so it works. And we can even call obj.show. So this default method will also come inside this class, okay? Same like inheritance. If I run this code, you can see we got in show, in ABC and in show. So that means we can define methods and interface now because of the new update in Java 8. So we can have default methods. Again, we'll see the real reason for this, why we are supposed to define method interface. So once we start with the topic of collection and generics, in that we'll talk about default methods. So kindly remember that in interface we can define methods. We can say default void show, and we are defining it, right? So we can define methods. We can define multiple methods here. Now in total, how many methods we have? We have 2 methods, right? So is it a functional interface? Let's try. So if I make it a functional interface, if I write functional interface about that, and you can see it is not giving you any error. Even if you have 2 methods, as we have seen in the last video, that functional interface will have only 1 method, right? So the real reason is functional interface will have only 1 abstract method. In this we do have 2 methods, but both are different, right? One is abstract and one is default. So we can have any number of default methods, but you have to make sure that you have only one abstract method here. So that's the point. So this is also a functional interface. Now, can we achieve method overriding? I don't want this definition. I want to have my own definition. Can we do that? If I say public void show, let's see if it is overriding it or not. We'll say in new show. And if I run this code, it should print in new show. Is it working? Yes, perfectly. So that means this method can be overridden in the class itself. Yeah, that's about default methods in interface. We can define methods. So that's it. Thank you so much. So in the last video, we have seen that we can define methods in interface, right? Again, there are lots of controversies. It should be allowed or not? But we have that feature now. So we can define method in interface using default keyword. Do we have any drawback of this? Let's see. If you remember, Java doesn't support multiple inheritance because one class, if it extends two classes, it will be difficult to track from which class we have to actually fetch the method, right? The same problem may get arise in interface as well. Let's see, we have an interface here which is my demo. So we have two interfaces now. One is demo and second is my demo. And I'm not defining a method here. Now if I call show, and first we have to implement both the interfaces. I will say demo comma my demo. If I run this code, you can see it is working, right? It shows in show. Let's say in demo show, just for the confirmation, it is calling from in demo show. But now what will happen, because see, when you call show, we don't have show inside demo implementation, right? And that's why it is fetching that show from interface. But what happens when you have show in my demo as well? Let's say this is not in my in demo, it is in my demo now. And if you see, it is giving you an error. It says that duplicate default methods name show with a parameter with the same parameters. So it is giving you an error, right? Now, how to solve this error? There's one way to solve this problem is, again, this is an ambiguity problem, right? Because which method to call, that's a confusion. So one of the solutions for this is create a method called show inside your class itself, okay, which prints in demo impl show. Now what will happen is, as soon as you call this show, it will execute this one. So there is no confusion of this one and this one. So that's how you can remove ambiguity issue with interfaces now. Okay, that's one of the way. Second way is, you can see it is giving you an option there. You can click on the option. If you click override default method, what it will do is it will create a show method, but we don't want our execution there. I mean, we don't want to print in demo impl show. What I want to do is, from this show, I want to call the superclass show, I mean super interface show of demo. So for that, you have to mention demo.super.show. So this is the first time we can use super with interfaces. So you can call the method of the interface with the help of super, but you have to also mention which super, because since we have two interfaces now, so you have to mention it is demo.super. If you run this, you will get in demo show. But if I change this to my demo.super.show, it will call in my demo show. So due to default methods and interfaces, also we are getting that ambiguity issue. So to solve that, we have two solutions. In fact, we have only one solution by defining the method. So either you can provide the implementation with your own implementation, or you can call the super interface methods by specifying the interface name, the super keyword, and the method name. So that's how you solve the ambiguity, or what you can say is multiple inheritance issue in Java 8. In the last video, we have talked about default methods and interface. In this video, we'll see another aspect of interface. So in Java 1.8, they have also provided one more feature. Let me remove this one. So we have an interface here, and we have a class which is interface demo. So what I want now is, in this interface, I don't want any method which is declared, but I want, or let's say we have a declared method there. I want a method definition here. So let's say if I say default void show, so I'll say hi. But let's say I want to call this show. Now the only way to call the show method is using the object of demo, right? And unfortunately, we cannot get object of interface. So what we normally do is we create a class which implements the interface, and then we create the object of the interface, object of the class. Those are the long steps, right? So if you have a method and you want to call that method only with the interface, you can also create a static method now in interface, which is something new again in Java 8. Now you can define static methods. Okay, this is the first time in Java where you have static methods in interface. And to call those methods, we just have to say interface name, which is demo.show. Okay, we don't have to create the object of it, and it's so simple. You can see we got the output as hi. So now in interface, we can have static methods. So we don't need object to call the static methods, right? Okay, that's one. But can we have variables in interface? So we can have abstract methods, we can have default methods, we can have static methods. Now can I have variables? Let's try. So if I go back, if I go up here, if I say int I, there is an error. It says blank field I. Okay, so we have to, it is compulsory for us to initialize the variable, let's say I equal to 8, and it's working. You can see, we'll say this is num. Okay, so we have int num equal to 8. That means we can create a variable. And here, if I go to my main, or maybe some other class, let's say we have a class here, let's say this is demo impl again, which implements demo. And here, if I say int, can I change the way, can I have a method here, let's say public void abc, the same method which was there earlier. And in this, if I say num equal to 9, and we got the error. The error is, it says the final field demo.num. Oh, hold on, that means we have not written any final thing here, right? So by default, if you create a variable inside the interface, it becomes a constant. So whenever you create a variable inside the interface, it becomes a constant variable, because by default, even if you don't write, we have a final keyword there. So even if you don't write final, it is there, it is already final. So whenever you create a variable inside the interface, it becomes final. Okay, so that is something you have to remember. We can create the variable, but that variable will be a final variable. Second, we can have default methods, we can have static methods, and we can have abstract methods. So that's about interfaces, overall interfaces we have talked about. So that's it.